They told me I would forget everything. They told me Alzheimer's would take my mind, my memories, my entire life, and leave me with nothing but confusion and empty spaces where my thoughts used to live. And maybe they were right about some of it. Maybe I do forget where I put my reading glasses, and maybe I do ask the same question twice in the same conversation, and maybe sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night not quite sure what year it is or why the house feels so different from the one I remember. But what they did not understand, what my husband Richard certainly did not understand, is that forgetting some things does not mean you forget everything. It does not mean you become stupid. It does not mean you lose the ability to see what is right in front of your face. And it definitely does not mean that someone who has spent 43 years sleeping beside you gets to walk into a courtroom and steal everything you built with your own two hands just because he thinks you will not remember enough to fight back. I am sitting in this courtroom right now, and I can feel the weight of that envelope in my purse, pressing against my hip like a secret that is burning to get out. Richard is sitting on the other side of the room with his lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in a navy suit who keeps glancing at me with something that looks almost like pity. But it is not pity for my condition. It is pity because she thinks I am about to lose everything, and maybe part of her feels bad about how easy this is going to be for them. My own lawyer, a kind man named Mr. Peterson, who speaks slowly and carefully to me as if I might shatter if he uses too many complicated words, has already warned me that this will be difficult. He has told me gently, the way you tell a child that sometimes life is not fair, that the court often sides with the spouse who can prove the other is not mentally competent to manage their own affairs. And Richard's lawyer has a whole file full of doctor's reports and witness statements and little incidents carefully documented over the past 8 months that paint a picture of a woman who cannot be trusted to remember her own name, let alone manage a fortune worth millions. But here is what they do not know. Here is what Richard did not count on when he filed those papers, and when he started documenting every single time I forgot to turn off the stove, or when I called our daughter by our son's name, or when I could not remember what day of the week it was. I have been documenting too. Not the way he did, with cold, calculated notes designed to make me look incompetent. I have been documenting the truth. And that truth is sitting in an envelope in my purse, waiting for the exact right moment to be revealed. The judge has not asked for it yet. Richard's lawyer is still presenting her case, still showing the court all the evidence of my declining mental state, still building the argument that everything I own should be placed under Richard's control for my own protection. But I can wait. I have always been good at waiting. I built my entire company on the ability to wait for the right moment, to see an opportunity that no one else saw, to understand that patience is not the same thing as passivity. The courtroom is cold, one of those places where the air conditioning runs too high, and the fluorescent lights make everyone look slightly sick and tired. I'm wearing my blue dress, the one our daughter Emily helped me pick out last week. She wanted me to look dignified, she said. She wanted me to look like someone who still has her wits about her, even if the medical reports say otherwise. Emily does not know about the envelope either. Nobody does. That was important. If Richard had even the slightest hint that I had something prepared, something beyond what my lawyer knows about, he would have found a way to suppress it or discredit it or explain it away. Richard has always been good at explaining things away. That is how he has managed to convince half our social circle that I am far worse off than I actually am, that I need constant supervision, that I am a danger to myself. He has painted himself as the devoted husband, exhausted and heartbroken, doing his best to care for a wife who no longer recognizes him half the time. And that part, I will admit, has some truth to it. There are days when I look at Richard and I do not quite remember who he is for a moment or two. There are days when the fog in my brain is so thick that I cannot see through it to the memories that I know are there somewhere, buried under layers of confusion. But here is the thing about Alzheimer's that nobody talks about. Sometimes the fog clears. Sometimes you get these moments of absolute clarity where everything snaps back into focus, and you remember not just what happened yesterday or last week, but things from years ago, things you thought were gone forever. And in those moments of clarity, you can see things you might have missed before. You can connect dots that you never connected when your brain was too busy, too full of daily distractions and responsibilities, and the 1,000 little things that keep you from seeing the bigger picture. I had one of those moments about 9 months ago. I woke up in the middle of the night, and Richard was not in bed beside me. That was not unusual. He had started sleeping in the guest room months earlier, claiming that I kept him awake with my restlessness. But that night, something made me get up and walk down the hallway. something made me stop outside his door and listen. And I heard him on the phone, his voice low and careful, and he was talking to someone about money, about my money, specifically, about accounts and investments and how much time he thought he had before I would be declared incompetent, about how once he had control of everything, he could finally do what he wanted without having to answer to anyone. And the way he said it, the coldness in his voice, made something click in my brain, made me remember other things, other late-night phone calls, other conversations I had half heard and dismissed because I thought maybe I was confused, maybe I was not remembering correctly. That was when I started paying attention. That was when I started keeping my own records, in my own way. Not notes that someone could find and take and use against me. Something better. Something that Richard would never think to look for, because he has never really understood how I built my business in the first place. He thinks it was luck. He thinks I just happened to be in the right place at the right time when the tech industry exploded in the 90s. He has no idea how many hours I spent learning, studying, understanding, not just the technology, but the people who used it, and what they needed, and how to give it to them in a way that made their lives better. He has no idea, because he was never interested in the details of my work. He was interested in the money it brought in, the house it bought, the lifestyle it provided. But the actual work, the thing I spent 30 years building from nothing, that was invisible to him. Richard's lawyer is showing the judge a video now. It is from 3 months ago, taken at a family dinner. In it, I am clearly confused about something. I keep asking where the bathroom is even though I have been to this restaurant dozens of times. I call the waiter by the wrong name. I knock over a water glass because my hands are shaking. It is painful to watch, and I can see the judge's expression shift slightly, becoming more sympathetic toward Richard. This is exactly what they want. They want the judge to see a woman who cannot function, who needs to be taken care of, who should not be trusted with anything more complicated than choosing what to have for breakfast. And I cannot deny that the woman in that video is me. I cannot deny that I have bad days, days when the world feels like it is shifting under my feet, and I cannot quite grab onto anything solid. But what the video does not show is what happened later that night. What it does not show is that I went home and I sat down at my computer and I wrote a detailed analysis of a new market trend that my former company, the one I sold 5 years ago but still consult for, had completely missed. What it does not show is that my analysis was so accurate and so valuable that they implemented my suggestions within a week and saw their stock price jump by 12%. What it does not show is that I might forget where the bathroom is in a restaurant, but I can still read a market trend like I am reading a children's book, because that knowledge, that understanding, it lives somewhere deeper than the part of my brain that Alzheimer's is eating away. It lives in a place that the disease has not reached yet, and maybe it never will. The envelope in my purse contains proof of all of that. It contains documentation of every piece of consulting work I have done in the past 9 months. It contains emails from executives thanking me for insights that saved their companies millions. It contains financial records showing that I have been managing my own investment portfolio with a level of success that would make most professional traders jealous. But more than that, it contains something else. Something I discovered during one of my clear moments, when I was going through financial records, trying to understand why our bank accounts looked different than I remembered. It contains proof of what Richard has really been doing for the past 2 years. It contains proof that the man sitting across this courtroom, the man who is asking the judge to give him control of my fortune because I am supposedly too incompetent to manage it myself, has been systematically stealing from me. Not large amounts. He is too smart for that. Small transfers, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, always to accounts I did not recognize, always with explanations that sounded reasonable if you did not look too closely. Medical expenses for my care, home modifications to make the house safer for me, private nurses who I do not remember ever meeting. And when I started digging deeper, when I used the skills I spent 30 years developing to trace where that money was actually going, I found something that made my blood run cold even through the fog of my confused thoughts. The money was not going to my care. It was going to another woman. A woman Richard has been seeing for the past 3 years. A woman who, according to the property records I found, is now living in a condo that was purchased with money transferred from my accounts. I have been sitting on this information for months, waiting for the right moment, waiting for Richard to make his move, because I knew he would. I knew that eventually his patience would run out, and he would try to take everything at once instead of continuing to skim little bits at a time. And I knew that when he did, when he walked into this courtroom and tried to convince a judge that I was too incompetent to manage my own life, that would be the moment when the truth would have the most impact. That would be the moment when the envelope would matter most. My lawyer does not know about any of this. I could not tell him because I was not sure if he would believe me. I was not sure if he would think I was just confused, just paranoid, just another symptom of my deteriorating mind, and I could not risk him dismissing it, or trying to talk me out of using it, or, worst of all, somehow tipping off Richard's lawyer that I had something prepared. So I have been playing the role they expect me to play, the confused elderly woman, the victim of her own failing brain, the wife who needs protection from herself. And it has been harder than I ever imagined. Sitting here listening to Richard's lawyer list all my failures and shortcomings, watching the judge's expression become more and more sympathetic toward my husband, feeling the weight of everyone's pity pressing down on me like a physical thing. But I also know something that Richard does not know. I know that the judge in this case, Judge Martha Harrison, built her career on elder abuse cases. I know because I did my research, because even with Alzheimer's, I still understand the importance of knowing who has power over your life. I know that she has a reputation for absolutely destroying anyone who tries to take advantage of elderly people, especially elderly people with cognitive decline. I know that she once sent a man to prison for 8 years for doing exactly what Richard is doing, for using his mother's dementia as an excuse to drain her accounts and leave her with nothing. And I know that the moment she sees what is in my envelope, everything in this courtroom is going to change. Richard's lawyer is finishing her presentation now. She is making her final argument, her voice full of compassion and concern. She is telling the judge that Richard loves me deeply, that he only wants what is best for me, that he is willing to take on the burden of managing my affairs, even though it will be difficult and time-consuming. She is painting him as a saint, a devoted husband sacrificing his own comfort for the sake of his declining wife. And I can see that the judge is listening carefully, considering every word. This is the moment where most people in my position would start to panic. This is the moment where the reality of losing everything would start to sink in. But I am not panicking. My hands are steady as I reach into my purse and pull out the envelope. My mind is clear, clearer than it has been in months, as if every functioning brain cell I have left has decided to show up for this one crucial moment. I lean over to Mr. Peterson, and I whisper that I have something the judge needs to see. He looks startled, confused, maybe a little worried that I am about to do something that will make things worse. But I put the envelope in his hands, and I tell him to trust me. I tell him to give it to the judge. And maybe it is something in my voice, some echo of the woman I used to be, the woman who built a company from nothing and made millions by trusting her instincts. But he nods slowly, and he stands up, and he approaches the bench. Have you ever felt like everyone around you thinks you are not capable anymore? Like they look at you and all they see is what you have lost instead of what you still have. Like they have already written you off, already decided that your voice does not matter and your choices do not count because you are not the person you used to be. If you have ever felt that way, if you have ever felt invisible in your own life, I want you to do something for me right now. I want you to leave a comment that says, "I am still here and I still matter." Just those words. Because when you write them, you are not just speaking for yourself. You are speaking for every person who has ever been dismissed or underestimated or treated like they do not have the right to control their own destiny. You are reminding the world that having trouble remembering things does not make you worthless, that needing help sometimes does not mean you should lose everything, that being vulnerable does not mean you stop being human. So please, take a moment and write those words. I am still here, and I still matter. Let your voice be heard. Let other people who feel the same way know that they are not alone. Let us build something together, right here, right now, in this space where our stories matter and our experiences count, and nobody gets to tell us that we do not have value anymore. The judge is reading what is in the envelope. I can see her expression changing, shifting from careful neutrality to something else, something harder. Her eyes move quickly over the pages, and then she looks up at Richard with an expression that makes him shift uncomfortably in his seat. She asks his lawyer to approach the bench. She asks my lawyer to approach as well. There is a whispered conversation that I cannot quite hear, but I can read body language. I can see Richard's lawyer's face go pale. I can see Mr. Peterson's eyes widen in surprise. And then the judge sits back and she asks Richard to stand. What happens next is something I will remember for the rest of my life, however long that ends up being. However many memories I lose in the months and years to come, this one is going to stick. The judge asks Richard directly if he has been transferring money from our joint accounts without my knowledge or consent. Richard stumbles over his answer, trying to explain, trying to make it sound reasonable, but the judge cuts him off. She reads aloud from the documents in the envelope. She lists the transfers, the amounts, the accounts they went to. She reads emails that I managed to recover from Richard's computer during one of my clear days. Emails where he talks about waiting for me to get worse so he can take full control. Emails where he discusses hiding assets and making sure I do not find out what he is doing until it is too late. The courtroom is completely silent except for the judge's voice, steady and cold and absolutely merciless. She talks about the condo purchased for Richard's girlfriend. She talks about the forged signatures on documents that transferred money from my personal accounts to Richard's name. She talks about the private investigator's report that I hired 6 months ago, the one that documented every meeting between Richard and his mistress, every lie he told about where he was going and what he was doing. And then she talks about something that even I did not know about until I started digging through our financial records with the help of a forensic accountant I hired in secret. She talks about the life insurance policy that Richard took out on me 8 months ago, the one with a $2 million payout, the one where he forged my signature on the application. Richard is trying to speak now, trying to defend himself, but his voice sounds hollow and desperate. His lawyer looks like she wants to disappear into the floor, and the judge is still talking, her words coming down like hammer blows. She says that what Richard has done is not just grounds for divorce, it is grounds for criminal charges. She says that she is denying his petition for conservatorship. She says that she is granting me full control of all marital assets. She says that she is issuing a restraining order preventing Richard from coming within 500 feet of me or accessing any of our shared accounts. And then she says something that makes my heart jump in my chest. She says that she is referring this case to the district attorney's office for prosecution for elder abuse, fraud, and attempted theft. Richard is shouting now, but the bailiff is already moving toward him. His lawyer is trying to calm him down, trying to get him to stop talking before he makes things worse for himself. And I am just sitting here, watching it all unfold, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and relief and anger and something that might be triumph, but mostly just feels like exhaustion. Because this is not really a victory, is it? This is just me protecting what is mine. This is just me refusing to be a victim. This is just me using the last bits of my functioning mind to make sure that the person who promised to love me in sickness and in health does not get to destroy me when the sickness finally comes. The judge is looking at me now, her expression softer than it was a moment ago. She asks if I have somewhere safe to stay. I tell her that our daughter has already prepared a room for me in her house. She asks if I have support, people who can help me manage my affairs as my condition progresses. I tell her that I do, that I have hired a team of professionals who will work with my doctor and my lawyer to make sure that when the time comes that I really cannot manage anymore, everything will be handled properly and legally and in my best interests. She nods slowly, and then she says something that brings tears to my eyes. She says that she has presided over a lot of cases involving people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and she has never seen someone fight as hard as I just fought to maintain their dignity and their autonomy. She says that I should be proud of myself. She says that what I did today will make it easier for other people in my situation to be taken seriously, to be believed when they say that someone is trying to take advantage of them. And maybe that is true. Maybe somewhere down the line, another elderly person with a failing memory will walk into a courtroom with an envelope full of truth, and a judge will remember this case and will take them seriously instead of just assuming they are confused. Maybe what happened here today matters beyond just my own life and my own money. I would like to think so. I would like to think that even as I lose more and more of myself to this disease, I can still do something that matters, something that helps someone else. But right now, in this moment, I am mostly just tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of having to prove that I still deserve basic human dignity. Tired of being seen as a problem to be managed instead of a person with thoughts and feelings and rights. Richard is being escorted out of the courtroom now. He does not look at me as he leaves. Maybe he cannot bear to. Maybe he is too angry. Maybe he is already thinking about his defense, about how he is going to explain all of this to our friends and our family and his lawyer. I do not really care. I am done caring about what Richard thinks or feels or wants. Mr. Peterson is gathering up papers, putting the envelope back together. He looks at me with something like respect now, something he did not have before when he was speaking slowly and carefully as if I might break. He tells me that what I did was remarkable. He tells me that he has never seen anything quite like it. He asks me how I managed to gather all that evidence without anyone knowing. And I want to tell him that it is because everyone underestimates what a person with Alzheimer's can do. Everyone assumes that because you forget some things, you cannot do anything. Everyone treats you like you are already gone, like the person you used to be has completely disappeared, and all that is left is this empty shell that kind of looks like you but does not really count anymore. And when people think you do not count, they stop being careful around you. They stop hiding things as well as they should. They forget that even a broken mind can still see patterns, still notice when things do not add up, still understand when someone is lying. But I do not tell him any of that because I am suddenly very, very tired. The clarity that I had during the hearing is starting to fade. The fog is creeping back in. I can feel it at the edges of my thoughts, soft and gray and inevitable. So I just smile at him and I say that I did what I had to do. And then Emily is there, my beautiful daughter with her father's eyes and my stubborn chin, and she is wrapping her arms around me and crying into my shoulder. She is saying that she is so proud of me, that she cannot believe I pulled this off, that she was so scared I was going to lose everything. And I hold her and I tell her that it is okay now. Everything is going to be okay. Except we both know that is not entirely true. Because Alzheimer's does not care that I won in court today. Alzheimer's does not care that I protected my money and exposed Richard's betrayal. Alzheimer's is still there, still eating away at my brain, still taking little pieces of me every single day. And there will come a time, maybe soon, when I will not be able to fight anymore, when the fog will not clear, when the moments of clarity will stop coming, when I will need help with everything, and I will not be able to tell the difference between people who want to help me and people who want to hurt me. That is the reality of this disease. That is the thing that no court victory can change. But today, right now, I still have enough of myself left to know that I mattered. I still have enough of my mind left to understand that I fought back and I won. And when the memories start to go, when I can no longer hold on to the details of what happened in this courtroom, maybe there will still be something deep inside me that remembers the feeling of refusing to be a victim. Maybe that will stay with me even when everything else is gone. Emily drives me to her house. We do not talk much during the drive. There is too much to say and not enough words that feel adequate. She keeps reaching over to squeeze my hand, as if she needs to reassure herself that I am really here, that I am still the mother she knows. And I squeeze back because I need the same reassurance, the same connection to something real and solid when so much of my world feels like it is slipping away. Her house is warm and bright, full of photos of her kids and cheerful colors and the kind of comfortable chaos that comes with a busy family. She has set up a room for me on the first floor, close to the bathroom, with a big window that looks out on her garden. There are labels on things, the dresser drawers marked with what is inside them, the bathroom cabinet organized with my medications in clear containers with the dosages written in large letters. She has thought of everything. And I realize, as I sit down on the bed and look around this room that my daughter has prepared for me, that this is what love actually looks like. Not Richard's version of love, which was really just convenience and money and appearance. Real love looks like someone anticipating what you will need before you need it. Real love looks like labels on dresser drawers and medications organized so you cannot make a mistake. Real love looks like a person rearranging their entire life to make space for you when you can no longer take care of yourself. Emily has 3 kids and a full-time job and a husband who travels constantly for work. She does not have extra time or extra energy, but she is giving them to me anyway, because that is what you do for people you actually love. I lie down on the bed and I close my eyes, and I let myself feel the weight of everything that has happened today. The fear, the anger, the satisfaction of watching Richard's face when the judge read those documents aloud, the exhaustion of having to fight so hard just to keep what is mine, the grief of knowing that this is just the beginning, that the disease will keep progressing and eventually I will not be able to fight anymore. And underneath all of that, there is something else. Something quieter but more persistent. It is the knowledge that I did not give up, that I did not just accept what Richard tried to do to me, that I used every bit of strength and clarity and intelligence I had left to protect myself, There is a knock on the door, and Emily comes in with a cup of tea. She sits down on the edge of the bed, and she tells me that she called her brother, my son David, and told him what happened in court. She says he is furious at Richard, says he always knew there was something off about him, but never imagined it was this bad. She says he is flying in tomorrow to talk about next steps, about making sure all the legal protections are in place, about pressing criminal charges if that is what I want to do. And I realize that I am lucky, despite everything. Lucky that I have children who care about me. Lucky that I caught Richard's betrayal before it was too late. Lucky that I had enough good days mixed in with the bad ones to gather the evidence I needed. Lucky that the judge was someone who took elder abuse seriously. So many people with Alzheimer's are not that lucky. So many people get taken advantage of by family members or caregivers or supposed friends who see their declining mental state as an opportunity rather than a tragedy. So many people lose everything because they cannot prove what is being done to them, cannot gather evidence, cannot make anyone listen. I think about those people now, lying in this comfortable bed in my daughter's house, drinking tea that is exactly the right temperature and sweetness, because Emily knows how I like it. I think about the people who do not have daughters like Emily, or judges like Martha Harrison, or enough moments of clarity to fight back. And I feel a responsibility to them somehow. A responsibility to tell this story, to let people know that just because someone has Alzheimer's does not mean they do not deserve protection and dignity and justice. If you are still watching this, if you have stayed with me through this entire story, I want to ask you something. I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel, not because I need the views or the numbers or whatever it is that matters on YouTube, but because there are more stories like mine that need to be told. There are more people out there who are fighting battles just like this one, trying to maintain their dignity and their autonomy in the face of a disease that wants to take everything. And when you subscribe, you are saying that those stories matter. You are saying that these people matter. You are saying that you want to hear about the fights we are fighting, and the victories we are winning, and even the losses we are experiencing, because all of it is part of the human experience, and all of it deserves to be witnessed. This channel is a space where we can talk about the hard things, the scary things, the things that most people do not want to acknowledge because they are uncomfortable. It is a place where you can find stories that remind you that you are not alone, that other people are struggling with the same fears and the same challenges, and that it is possible to fight back even when it feels impossible. So please, take a moment and click that subscribe button. Join this community. Be part of something that matters. The next few weeks pass in a blur of lawyers and meetings and phone calls. The district attorney decides to press charges against Richard for elder abuse and fraud. There is a preliminary hearing where I have to testify, and it is harder than the divorce hearing because by this point I am having more bad days than good ones. There are moments during my testimony where I cannot remember what year it is or where I am or why Richard is sitting across the room looking at me with such hatred. But I have Mr. Peterson beside me, and he gently redirects me when I get confused. And somehow we get through it. The judge binds Richard over for trial. He is released on bail, but the restraining order stays in place. I do not have to see him or talk to him or worry about him showing up at Emily's house. David arrives and he is wonderful, taking care of all the practical things that I can no longer manage. He works with my lawyer to set up a special needs trust that will protect my money and make sure it is used for my care. He interviews care facilities for when the time comes that Emily cannot manage having me in her house anymore. He sits with me on good days and we talk about his life, his job, his girlfriend who he thinks he might marry. And on bad days, he just sits with me in comfortable silence, or he reads to me, or he holds my hand while I cry about things I cannot quite articulate. He and Emily tag team my care, making sure someone is always there, always watching, always ready to help when I need it. And through all of this, I find myself thinking about Richard, not with the anger I expected, but with something closer to pity. Because he threw away 43 years of marriage, threw away his children's respect, threw away any chance of redemption, all for money. Money that he did not even need because we were already wealthy. Money that was never really his to begin with because I was the one who earned it. And now he is facing criminal charges and social disgrace and quite possibly prison time. All because he could not just be content with what he had. All because he saw my illness as an opportunity instead of a tragedy. All because he forgot that being married to someone means you are supposed to protect them, not prey on them. But mostly I think about the envelope. That simple manila envelope that I carried into court that held all the proof I needed to save myself. I think about how close I came to not having it, to not having those moments of clarity where I could gather evidence and make plans. I think about how easily this story could have gone the other way, with me losing everything and ending up in some state-funded facility, while Richard lived in comfort with his mistress in the condo, bought with my money. And I think about all the other people out there right now who are in situations like the one I was in, who need help, but do not know how to ask for it, or cannot make anyone believe them. There is a support group for people with early-stage Alzheimer's that meets at the community center near Emily's house. She takes me there on Thursday afternoons when I am having a good day. We sit in a circle, 12 or 15 of us, and we talk about what it is like to lose your mind piece by piece. We talk about the fear and the frustration and the grief of watching yourself disappear. And during one of these meetings, I tell them what happened with Richard. I tell them about the envelope and the court hearing and the look on his face when the judge read those documents aloud, and the room goes completely silent. Some people are crying, others look angry. One woman, maybe 10 years older than me, says that her son is doing the same thing to her, taking money from her accounts and claiming it is for her care when she knows it is not. She says she has tried to report it, but nobody believes her because her diagnosis is more advanced than mine, and she has a harder time keeping her thoughts straight. After the meeting, I talk to her privately. Her name is Margaret, and she has kind eyes and hands that shake worse than mine. I tell her about Mr. Peterson, about Judge Harrison, about the forensic accountant who helped me trace where the money was going. I give her names and phone numbers written carefully in large letters on a piece of paper. I tell her that it is not too late, that she can fight back, that having Alzheimer's does not mean she has to let people steal from her, and she hugs me, this stranger who I have only just met, and she cries on my shoulder and she says that she thought she was just being paranoid, that her son kept telling her she was confused and imagining things. She says that having someone believe her, someone who understands what it is like, means more than I can possibly know, and I realize that this is what I am supposed to do with whatever time I have left. Not build another company, or make more money, or achieve some new professional goal, but this, helping other people who are going through what I went through, being the person who believes them when everyone else thinks they are just confused. Being the proof that you can fight back, that you can protect yourself, that having a disease that steals your memories does not mean you have to let it steal your dignity too. It is a small thing, maybe. It is not going to change the world, or cure Alzheimer's, or solve the massive problem of elder abuse, but it is something. It is a way of making my life matter, even as I am losing pieces of it every day. Emily helps me set up a blog where I can write about my experiences when I am having clear days. David helps me organize my documents and my story so that it can be used as a resource for other people fighting similar battles. Mr. Peterson connects me with an elder law attorney who specializes in these cases and who is willing to consult with people who reach out after reading my story. And slowly, piece by piece, we build something. A network of people who have been through this. A collection of resources and strategies and legal information. A community of survivors and fighters and people who refuse to be victims. The trial happens 6 months after the divorce hearing. By this point, my condition has deteriorated significantly. I have more bad days than good ones now. There are whole weeks where I do not really know where I am or what is happening. But David and Emily make sure I am there for the important moments. They make sure I am present when Richard is convicted on multiple counts of elder abuse and fraud. They make sure I am there when the judge sentences him to 8 years in prison. They make sure I hear when the prosecutor reads a statement on my behalf about the impact his actions had on me, about the betrayal and the fear and the violation of trust. And even though I am foggy and confused and not entirely sure what is happening, some part of me understands that justice has been done. Some part of me feels the satisfaction of knowing that Richard did not get away with it. I move into a memory care facility about a year after the trial. Emily fought it for as long as she could, but eventually, my needs became more than she could manage at home with 3 kids and a full-time job. The facility is nice, as these places go, clean and bright with staff who are patient and kind. There is a garden I can walk in on good days. There are activities designed for people like me, people who are losing themselves but still have some awareness left. David and Emily visit all the time, bringing the grandkids, reading to me, sitting with me, even when I do not remember who they are. And on my very best days, the ones that are increasingly rare, I remember the courtroom and the envelope, and the look on Richard's face when everything fell apart for him. I remember that I fought back. I remember that I mattered. But here is the thing I have not told you yet. Here is the twist that even I did not see coming until it was almost too late. About 2 weeks before Richard filed for divorce, during one of my confused episodes, I signed some papers. I do not remember doing it. I do not remember what the papers said, or who gave them to me, or why I thought it was okay to sign them. But according to those documents, which Richard's lawyer tried to introduce very late in the divorce proceedings, I had agreed to put all my assets in a joint trust with Richard having full control. I had essentially signed away everything while I was too confused to understand what I was doing. And if those papers had been valid, if they had been properly notarized and witnessed, everything I did would not have mattered. The envelope would not have mattered. The evidence of Richard's theft would not have mattered, because I would have legally given him control of everything before he even filed for divorce. But there was a problem with those papers, a problem that I did not discover until my forensic accountant was going through everything and noticed something odd about the notary stamp. The notary whose signature was on those documents, whose stamp made them legal, did not actually exist. Richard had faked the notarization. He had been so confident that I would not be able to fight back, so sure that nobody would look too closely at the paperwork, that he had cut corners. He had forged a notary's signature and stamp instead of actually having the documents properly witnessed and notarized. And that one mistake, that one moment of arrogance and overconfidence, invalidated the entire thing. It turned his ace in the hole into evidence of fraud. It became one more charge against him, one more thing that the prosecutor used to paint a picture of a man who was willing to do absolutely anything to steal his wife's money. So in the end, the thing that saved me was not just my envelope full of evidence. It was Richard's own arrogance, his absolute certainty that I was too far gone to fight back, too confused to notice what he was doing, too mentally compromised to be a threat. He underestimated me because he saw the Alzheimer's and nothing else. He forgot that I was still a person, still intelligent, still capable of fighting for myself when it mattered most. And that mistake cost him everything. I think about that a lot. On the days when I can still think clearly, I think about how people with disabilities of any kind, physical or mental, are constantly underestimated. How people see what we have lost and forget about what we still have. How we become invisible, or worse, how we become objects of pity instead of people with agency and dignity and rights. And I think about how dangerous that is, not just for us, but for everyone. Because any of us could end up in this situation. Any of us could develop Alzheimer's or dementia, or have a stroke or a traumatic brain injury that affects our cognitive function. Any of us could find ourselves suddenly vulnerable, suddenly dependent on others, suddenly having to prove that we still matter and still deserve to be treated with basic human decency. The envelope I brought to court that day represented months of work during my clearest moments. It represented every ounce of intelligence and determination and sheer stubbornness I had left. But it also represented something else. It represented the fact that I refused to accept the story Richard was telling about me. The story that said I was helpless, that I was gone, that the person I used to be no longer existed. I refused to let that be the end of my story. And even now, sitting in this memory care facility with more of my past gone than remains, I still refuse to accept that narrative. I am still here. Diminished? Yes. Confused? Absolutely. Losing more of myself every day, without question. But still here. Still present. Still deserving of dignity and respect and justice. If you have watched this whole video, if you have stayed with me through this entire story, then you understand something important. You understand that people like me, people with Alzheimer's and dementia and other conditions that affect our minds, are still people. We still have value. We still have rights. We still deserve to be heard and believed and protected. And when someone tries to take advantage of us, when someone sees our vulnerability as an opportunity, that is not just wrong. It is evil. It is a betrayal of everything that human beings are supposed to be for each other. I do not know how much longer I will be able to tell this story. I do not know how many more clear days I have left before the fog becomes permanent, but I know that it matters that I tell it now, while I still can. Because maybe somewhere out there, Someone is in the situation I was in a year ago. Someone is watching their spouse or their child or their caregiver take advantage of them, and they feel helpless because nobody will believe them when they try to speak up. And maybe that person will see this video and they will realize that they are not helpless, that they can fight back, that they deserve to fight back, and maybe that will make all the difference. The envelope I carried into court that day was not just about money or divorce or punishing Richard for what he did. It was about refusing to disappear. It was about insisting that my voice still mattered, that my understanding of what was happening to me was valid, that I had the right to protect myself, even though I had a disease that made people think I could not. It was about being seen, about being heard, about being believed. And in the end, that is what all of us want, is it not? Whether we have Alzheimer's or not, whether we are old or young, sick or healthy, powerful or vulnerable, we all want to be seen and heard and believed. We all want our stories to matter. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for seeing me, for hearing me, for believing my story. Thank you for being the kind of person who cares about what happens to people like me, who understands that this could happen to anyone, who recognizes that fighting for justice and dignity for the most vulnerable among us is really fighting for all of us. Please share this video if it moved you. Please talk about it with your friends and family. Please think about the elderly people in your own life and make sure they are protected and safe and not being taken advantage of. And please remember that behind every diagnosis, every label, every disease, there is a person, a real person with a history and a story, and a right to be treated with respect. I may forget most of this eventually. The details will fade, the memories will slip away, the clarity will become more and more rare until someday it does not come back at all. But right now, in this moment, I remember. I remember fighting back. I remember refusing to be a victim. I remember that I mattered. And I hope that somewhere, somehow, that memory stays with me even when everything else is gone. I hope that deep down in whatever part of me survives this disease, there is a tiny spark that knows I fought and I won, that I protected myself, that I did not go gentle into that good night, that until the very end I insisted on being seen as a person, not just a diagnosis. And I hope that my story helps someone else do the same. The memory care facility becomes my world, but it is a smaller world than the one I used to inhabit. My room is on the second floor with a window that overlooks the garden. There are pictures on the walls that Emily put there, photos of people who I am told are my family. Some days I recognize them. Some days they are strangers whose faces mean nothing to me. But there is one photo that always catches my attention, even on my worst days. It is a picture of me from about 5 years ago, standing in front of my company's headquarters, wearing a navy blue suit and holding an award for Businesswoman of the Year. The woman in that photo looks confident, powerful, completely in control of her life. And some days I look at her and I cannot believe that she is me, that I was ever that person, that I had that kind of strength. But other days, the good days, I look at that photo and I remember. I remember what it felt like to build something from nothing. I remember the late nights in the office, the risks I took, the decisions I made that could have destroyed everything, but instead made me wealthy beyond anything I had imagined as a young woman. I remember that I was smart, that I was capable, that I was someone who mattered in the world beyond just my family and my immediate circle. And on those days, I also remember Richard sitting in that courtroom, his face going pale as the judge read through the evidence of his betrayal. I remember the envelope. I remember fighting back, and I feel something that might be pride, mixed with grief for everything I have lost. There is a young woman who works here named Sarah. She is a care aide, probably in her mid-20s, with dark hair always pulled back in a ponytail and a smile that seems genuine, even when she is dealing with the difficult parts of this job. Sarah is the one who helps me get dressed on the days when my hands shake too much to manage buttons. She is the one who reminds me to take my medications, who walks with me in the garden when the weather is nice, who sits with me when I am agitated and confused and cannot remember where I am or why I feel so frightened. And one day, during one of my clearer moments, she asks me about the photo on my wall, the one of me with the award. She wants to know what kind of business I ran, so I tell her. And once I start talking, the memories come flooding back with a clarity that surprises both of us. I tell her about starting the company in my garage in 1992 with $15,000 I had saved and a business plan that everyone said would never work. I tell her about the first client who took a chance on me, about the software we developed that revolutionized how small businesses managed their inventory. I tell her about growing from just me working alone to 50 employees within 3 years, to 500 employees within 10 years. I tell her about the acquisition offers I turned down because I was not ready to sell, about finally selling in 2020 for an amount that made me one of the wealthiest self-made women in the state. And as I am telling her all of this, I can see her expression changing. She is seeing me differently now, not just as an elderly woman with Alzheimer's who needs help getting dressed, but as someone who accomplished something remarkable, who built something meaningful, who was powerful and successful and impressive. And I realize that this is what we lose when we have conditions like mine. It is not just the memories themselves, though those are devastating enough to lose. It is the way other people see us. We become our diagnosis. We become our limitations. We become the help we need instead of the things we accomplished. Sarah has been taking care of me for 6 months, helping me with the most intimate and vulnerable moments of my day. But she had no idea who I was before this disease. She had no idea that I was someone who mattered, who did things that were impressive and important, and I do not blame her for that. Why would she know? Why would anyone think to ask an elderly woman with dementia about her past accomplishments? We are invisible in a way that healthy people can never quite understand. After that conversation, Sarah starts asking me questions whenever I am having a good day. She wants to know everything. What it was like to be a woman in tech in the 90s, when it was even more male-dominated than it is now. How I dealt with people who underestimated me or dismissed my ideas. What my biggest challenges were, my biggest victories, my biggest regrets. And I tell her everything I can remember. Some days the memories are clear and detailed, and I can talk for an hour without getting confused. Other days I lose the thread halfway through a story, and I cannot find my way back to what I was trying to say. But Sarah is patient. She never rushes me or finishes my sentences or treats me like I am wasting her time. She listens like what I am saying matters, like I still have value beyond just being someone who needs care. One day she tells me that she is studying business administration at community college. She is working full-time at the memory care facility and going to school part-time, and she wants to eventually start her own company. She says that talking to me has inspired her, has made her believe that it is possible, even though she does not have money or connections or any of the advantages that make entrepreneurship easier. And I feel something in my chest that might be hope or might be sadness or might be both at the same time. Hope that my story might help someone else achieve their dreams. Sadness that by the time Sarah builds her company and becomes successful, I will probably be too far gone to remember any of this conversation or to know that I had any influence on her life at all. But maybe that is okay. Maybe it is enough that in this moment, right now, I can share something that matters to someone who is listening. Maybe it is enough that for a few hours a week, when Sarah comes to check on me and ends up staying to talk, I am not just a patient. I am a teacher, a mentor, someone with knowledge and experience worth sharing. Maybe that is what dignity looks like when you have Alzheimer's. Not pretending that you are not sick, not denying the reality of what you have lost, but insisting that you still have something to offer, that your past accomplishments still matter, that the person you were does not completely disappear just because you cannot always remember who that person was. David comes to visit me on a Saturday afternoon, and he brings news about Richard. The trial ended months ago, but there are still legal proceedings happening around the financial restitution. David has been managing all of that, working with lawyers to make sure that every penny Richard stole gets returned to my accounts. He tells me that Richard's girlfriend left him as soon as he was convicted. The condo that was purchased with my money has been sold and the proceeds returned to my estate. Richard's lawyer is trying to negotiate a deal where he admits to additional financial crimes in exchange for serving his sentences concurrently instead of consecutively. David wants to know what I think, whether we should accept that deal or push for the maximum sentence. And I have to tell him that I do not know, that I can barely remember who Richard is on my bad days, let alone hold enough anger to want him to suffer more than he already is. David looks sad when I say that, and I realize that my forgiveness, or whatever this is not really forgiveness at all. It is just forgetting. It is the disease taking even my righteous anger away from me, leaving me with a kind of blank neutrality toward the man who tried to destroy me. And David says that it is okay, that he and Emily will make the decision, that I do not have to think about Richard anymore if I do not want to. He says that the important thing is that I am safe now, that my money is protected, that I will have excellent care for as long as I need it. But I want to tell him that it is not okay. I want to tell him that I want to hold on to my anger, that anger means I still remember what Richard did, that anger means I am still me in some fundamental way. Except, I cannot quite articulate all of that because the words are slippery today and my thoughts keep sliding away before I can catch them. So instead I just hold David's hand and I tell him that I love him. And he tells me he loves me too. And maybe that is enough. Maybe love is what survives when everything else falls away. Maybe that is the thing that Alzheimer's cannot quite take from us, even when it takes everything else. Emily brings the grandchildren to visit. There are 3 of them, ages 6 to 12, and they are loud and energetic and full of life. The youngest, a little girl named Sophie, climbs into my lap and shows me a drawing she made at school. She tells me it is a picture of our family, and she points to each stick figure and tells me who they are. Daddy, Mommy, her 2 brothers, Emily, me. She has drawn me with white hair and a big smile, holding hands with all of them, and I want to tell her that this is beautiful, that I will treasure it forever, but the truth is that I will probably forget about it by tomorrow. I will probably forget that she visited at all, and that breaks my heart in a way that I cannot fully express. But Sophie does not know that. Sophie just sees her grandmother looking at her drawing and she is happy. She chatters away about school and her friends and a loose tooth that is going to fall out any day now. And I listen, or I try to listen, and I make the appropriate responses even when I am not entirely sure what she is talking about. Because this matters to her, because she loves me, even though the grandmother she loves is disappearing a little more every day. Because children have this wonderful ability to love people exactly as they are, without needing them to be anything more than present. After they leave, I sit in my room and I cry. Not because I am sad exactly, or not just because I am sad, but because everything feels so heavy, so complicated, so full of loss and love all tangled together. I cry because I had a beautiful life and I am losing my ability to remember it. I cry because I fought so hard to protect myself from Richard and now I can barely remember why I was fighting. I cry because my grandchildren love me and someday soon I will not recognize them anymore. I cry because I am still here, but I am also slowly disappearing and I do not know which is worse, being gone completely or being stuck in this in-between place where I am neither fully present nor fully absent. Sarah finds me crying, and she sits down beside me. She does not ask what is wrong or try to fix it. She just sits there, her hand on my shoulder, letting me cry for as long as I need to. And when I finally stop, when the tears dry up and I am just exhausted, she asks if I want to go sit in the garden. So we do. We sit on a bench under a big oak tree, and we watch the birds and the clouds and the other residents walking past with their own caregivers or family members. And Sarah tells me about her classes, about a business plan she is developing for her final project. She asks if I have any advice, and I do. Even through the fog, even with all the confusion, some part of my brain that understands business is still intact. I tell her about market research, about understanding your customer before you try to sell them anything. I tell her about the importance of cash flow, about how many businesses fail, not because their product is bad, but because they run out of money before they can establish themselves. I tell her to find mentors, to ask for help, to not be afraid to admit when she does not know something. I tell her that being a woman in business is still harder than it should be, that she will face discrimination and dismissal, and people who underestimate her. But I also tell her that being underestimated can be an advantage if she uses it right, that people reveal more when they think you are not a threat, that she should never let anyone else's limited expectations define what she is capable of achieving. Sarah is writing all of this down in a little notebook, and I feel useful in a way I have not felt in a long time. This is what I was good at. This is what I built my entire career on. The ability to see what others missed, to understand how businesses work and how to make them successful. And even though Alzheimer's has taken so much from me, This knowledge is still here. These skills are still accessible, at least sometimes, at least on my good days. And that matters. That means something. Have you ever felt like the person you used to be is slipping away, and you cannot hold on to them no matter how hard you try? Like you are watching yourself disappear and there is nothing you can do to stop it? If you are feeling that way, if you are struggling with your own losses or watching someone you love lose themselves, I want you to know something. I want you to know that even in the loss, there are moments of connection. Even in the forgetting, there are moments of clarity. Even in the disappearing, there are moments where you are fully present and fully yourself. Those moments matter. They count. They are real and valuable and worth fighting for. So please, if you are still here with me, if you are still listening to this story, leave a comment that says my moments matter, because they do. Your moments of clarity, your moments of connection, your moments of being fully yourself despite everything that is trying to take that away from you. Those moments are precious and real and they count. Write those words. My moments matter. Say them for yourself and for everyone else who needs to hear it. Let us remind each other that we are still here, still present, still valuable, no matter what we have lost. The days blend together in the memory care facility. Sometimes I think it is morning when it is actually evening. Sometimes I think Emily just visited when actually it has been a week since I saw her. Time becomes elastic, unreliable, something that I cannot quite hold on to. But there are rhythms to this place that help me orient myself. Meals at certain times. Sarah's shifts 3 days a week, the support group on Thursday afternoons, though I am not always well enough to attend anymore. These rhythms become anchors, small fixed points in a world that otherwise feels like it is constantly shifting under my feet. I make friends here, though I cannot always remember their names. There is a woman who I eat lunch with most days. She used to be a teacher, I think, or maybe a librarian. She tells me stories about her students, or maybe they are stories about her children. I am not always sure, but I like listening to her. Her voice is soothing, and she does not seem to mind when I forget what we were just talking about. There is a man who sits in the garden every afternoon feeding the birds. He does not talk much, but he always nods at me when I walk past, and sometimes I sit beside him and we watch the birds together in comfortable silence. There is another woman who cries a lot, calling for her mother who died decades ago. The staff try to comfort her, but she cannot be comforted because she cannot understand that her mother is gone. She is living in a past where her mother is still alive, still the person she wants when she is scared or confused. And I think about how we all cope differently with this disease. Some of us retreat into the past. Some of us exist only in the present moment with no connection to what came before or what might come after. Some of us fight to maintain our grip on reality for as long as possible. There is no right way to have Alzheimer's. There is no good way to lose your mind. There is just the way you do it, the path your particular brain takes as it deteriorates, the specific things you lose, and the specific things you manage to hold on to. For me, what I hold on to longest is the memory of that courtroom. Even on my worst days, even when I cannot remember my children's names or where I am or what year it is, some part of me remembers standing up to Richard. The details get fuzzy. Sometimes I think the judge was a man. Sometimes I think the hearing happened last week instead of over a year ago. Sometimes I confuse it with other memories, other moments of triumph or conflict from my long life. But the emotional core of it stays with me. The feeling of refusing to be a victim. The satisfaction of watching someone who tried to hurt me face consequences for their actions. The knowledge that I fought back and I won. My lawyer, Mr. Peterson, comes to visit me one day. He brings papers for me to sign. Something to do with the trust that David set up. I try to read them, but the words swim on the page, and I cannot make sense of the legal language. So Mr. Peterson explains it to me slowly, patiently, making sure I understand what I am signing. He tells me that this is the final piece, that with these signatures, my estate will be completely protected no matter what happens to me from here on out. He tells me that I should be proud of myself, that what I did was extraordinary, that he has been practicing elder law for 30 years, and he has never seen anyone fight as effectively as I fought to protect themselves. And I want to tell him that I did not feel extraordinary, that I felt terrified and desperate and like I was barely holding myself together, that there were so many moments when I almost gave up, almost decided that it was too hard, that I was too confused, that maybe Richard was right and I should just let him take care of everything. But I do not tell him that because the words are hard to find today and I am tired. So I just sign the papers where he tells me to sign them, and I thank him for everything he did for me. And he pats my hand gently and tells me to take care of myself. And then he leaves, and I go back to my room and I take a nap because all of this has exhausted me. That night, I have a dream about the company. I am back in the office, back in the life I used to have. I am sitting at my desk, looking at spreadsheets and market analysis, and making decisions that affect hundreds of employees. People are coming into my office asking for my approval on various projects. The phone is ringing. My computer keeps dinging with new emails, and I am handling it all, juggling everything, feeling competent and in control and powerful. And then I wake up in my room at the memory care facility, and for a moment I cannot figure out where I am or why everything looks so wrong. And the grief of that moment, the realization that the life in my dream is gone and never coming back, is almost unbearable. But then Sarah comes in to help me get ready for breakfast, and she is cheerful and kind, and she tells me that it is a beautiful day outside, and I let her help me, even though some part of me hates needing help with basic things like getting dressed and brushing my teeth. I let her guide me to the dining room, let her make sure I eat enough, let her treat me with a gentleness that would have felt condescending in my old life, but now feels necessary and comforting. And I try to be grateful for what I still have instead of angry about what I lost. Some days I succeed at that, other days I do not. David tells me that Richard's appeal was denied. He will serve the full 8 years unless he gets parole, which is unlikely given the nature of his crimes. David says this like it is good news, like it is something that should make me happy, and maybe it would have made me happy a year ago. Maybe a year ago I would have felt satisfied, vindicated, glad that Richard was paying for what he did. But now I just feel empty. Richard is in prison and I am in a memory care facility, and we are both trapped in places we never wanted to be. The difference is that Richard chose his prison through his own actions. Mine was chosen for me by a disease I did not ask for and cannot control. But I do not say that to David because I can see how hard he is trying to make this better for me, to frame everything in a way that emphasizes that I won, that justice was served, that I should feel good about how things turned out. And he is not wrong. Exactly. I did win. Justice was served. Things could have been so much worse. But winning when you have Alzheimer's is complicated because even as you are fighting for your rights and your dignity and your autonomy, the disease is still progressing. You can win the battle and still lose the war. You can protect your money and still lose your mind. You can make sure no one takes advantage of you and still end up in a place where you need help with everything, and your past accomplishments feel like they happened to someone else. Emily brings me my laptop on one of my good days. She has loaded it with photos, hundreds and hundreds of photos from my entire life, baby pictures of my children, wedding photos from when Richard and I got married, back when we were young and happy, and I had no idea how things would eventually turn out. Pictures from the early days of my company, me and my first few employees crowded into that garage workspace looking exhausted and excited. Pictures from the acquisition, me shaking hands with the CEO who bought my company, both of us smiling for the cameras. Pictures of grandchildren, holidays, vacations, a whole life documented in digital images. And I sit there scrolling through them, and it is like looking at a stranger's life. I recognize some of it. There are moments that feel familiar, echoes of memories that I can almost grasp, but so much of it is just gone. I look at pictures of events I apparently attended, places I apparently visited, people I apparently knew well enough to pose with for photos, and I feel nothing. No recognition, no connection, just this weird sense of seeing evidence of a life I do not remember living. And Emily sits beside me crying, probably because she can see that I am not remembering, that these pictures that she hoped would bring back memories are instead just making it more obvious how much I have lost. But then we get to a picture from the courthouse. Someone, probably David, took it right after the hearing ended. I am standing on the steps in my blue dress, holding the envelope, and my expression is fierce and triumphant and strong. And when I see that picture, something clicks. I remember. Not everything, not all the details, but the feeling of that moment, the satisfaction, the pride, the sense of having fought back and won. And I point to the picture and I tell Emily about the envelope, about the evidence I gathered, about the look on Richard's face when the judge read those documents. And Emily is laughing and crying at the same time, and she tells me that she was so scared that day, so afraid I was going to lose everything, and so incredibly proud when I pulled out that envelope and changed everything. And we sit there together looking at that one picture, and for a little while, I am fully present. I am fully me. I remember who I was and what I did. and why it mattered. And Emily tells me that she saved that envelope, that it is in a safe deposit box, along with all the other important documents from the case. She says that someday, when her daughter Sophie is older, she is going to tell her about what her grandmother did. She is going to tell her about the woman who refused to be a victim, who fought back even when her own mind was failing her, who used every bit of intelligence and strength she had left to protect herself and achieve justice. And I start crying because I am so grateful that someone will remember that even when I am completely gone, even when there is nothing left of me but a body without memories or thoughts or personality, someone will know that I mattered. Someone will know that I fought. Someone will know that I was more than just a diagnosis. This is what I want you to understand if you are watching this video. This is what I want you to take away from my story. You are more than your worst moments. You are more than your limitations. You are more than what the disease or the disability or the trauma has taken from you. You still have value. You still have dignity. You still deserve to be treated with respect and compassion and justice. And if someone tries to take advantage of you because they think you are too weak or too confused or too damaged to fight back, you fight anyway. You fight with everything you have. You use whatever clarity you can find, whatever strength you can muster, whatever resources you can access. You refuse to go quietly. You refuse to make it easy for them. You insist on being seen and heard and taken seriously. And if you are someone who loves a person with Alzheimer's or dementia or any condition that affects cognitive function, please remember this. Remember that the person is still there, even when they seem lost. Remember that they still have feelings and thoughts and a sense of self, even if they cannot always articulate it. Remember that they deserve your patience and your kindness and your protection. Remember that your job is not to take over their life, but to support them in living their life for as long as they possibly can. Remember that dignity is not something you lose when you need help. Dignity is something that should be given to every person, always, no matter how much help they need or how confused they seem, or how different they are from the person they used to be. Subscribe to this channel if these stories matter to you. Subscribe if you want to be part of a community that sees people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia as human beings worthy of respect and justice and love. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about people fighting back, refusing to be victims, insisting on their right to dignity, even when the world wants to write them off. This is not just entertainment. This is not just content. These are real stories about real struggles that real people are facing every single day. And when you subscribe, you are saying that these stories matter. You are saying that these people matter. You are saying that you want to be part of something bigger than yourself, something that honors the humanity in all of us, especially those of us who are most vulnerable. The seasons change and I am still here. I am still in this facility, still losing pieces of myself day by day, still having moments of clarity mixed with long stretches of confusion. Sarah graduated from community college and got accepted to a 4-year university. She is cutting back her hours at the facility so she can focus on school, and I am so proud of her even though I will probably forget about her graduation within a few days. She promises to visit me even after she is not working here anymore. I do not know if she will. People mean well when they make promises like that, but life gets busy and it is hard to visit someone who might not remember you from one visit to the next. My son David is getting married. He brings his fiancée to meet me, a lovely woman with red hair and a warm smile. They are planning a small wedding in the spring. David asks if I will be well enough to attend. I tell him I do not know. Nobody knows. I could be exactly the same in 6 months, or I could be significantly worse. There is no way to predict how fast this disease will progress, but I tell him to plan his wedding without worrying about me, to not let my condition dictate his choices. He deserves to be happy and celebrate his love without the shadow of my illness hanging over everything. He cries a little when I say that, and I hold him and tell him it is okay, that this is not his fault and not his burden, that my illness is my illness, and he should live his life. But I hope I can be there. I hope I can have one more good day, one more moment of clarity, one more chance to be present for something important in my children's lives. I have already missed so much. Emily's youngest started kindergarten, and I do not remember his first day. There have been dance recitals and soccer games and school plays that I either could not attend or attended but do not remember. There will be more milestones that I miss, either because I am too sick to participate or because I am there in body but not in mind. That is the cruelty of this disease. You do not just lose your past. You lose your ability to form new memories, to be present for new experiences, to build new moments with the people you love. But I still have now. I still have this moment, sitting in my room at the memory care facility, looking out the window at the garden where the leaves are starting to turn gold and red. I still have the ability to feel the sun on my face when Sarah wheels me outside. I still have the sound of my daughter's voice reading to me. I still have the warmth of my son's hand when he holds mine during his visits. These things are real. These things matter. And even if I do not remember them tomorrow, they still happened. They still count. I still experienced them, and they still brought me comfort and joy and connection. That is what I have learned from all of this. From the betrayal and the fight and the slow loss of myself, I have learned that life is not about what you remember. Life is about what you experience in each moment, and those moments have value whether you remember them or not. The moment when Sarah makes me laugh with a silly joke has value even if I forget it 5 minutes later. The moment when Emily hugs me goodbye has value even if I ask her 10 minutes later when she is coming to visit. The moment when I sit in the garden and watch the birds has value even if I do not remember that I did the same thing yesterday and the day before that. Each moment exists on its own terms. Each moment is a small, complete experience of being alive. I wish I had understood that earlier. I wish I had spent less of my life worrying about the future and trying to build something that would last, and more time just being present in whatever moment I was in. I wish I had paid more attention to small things, ordinary things, moments that seemed insignificant at the time, but that I would give anything to remember clearly now. The sound of my children laughing when they were young, the feeling of accomplishment at the end of a long workday, the simple pleasure of morning coffee while reading the newspaper, the way Richard used to kiss my forehead before he became the person who betrayed me. All of those moments were real and valuable, and I let them pass by without fully appreciating them because I was too busy planning and building and achieving. But maybe that is okay too. Maybe you cannot live your whole life focused on being present because you also have to think about the future, plan for what is coming, build things that matter. Maybe the lesson is not that I did it wrong before. Maybe the lesson is that now, when I cannot plan and cannot build and cannot achieve anymore, I can finally just be. I can finally just exist in the present moment without the weight of past regrets or future anxieties. It is not the way I would have chosen to learn this lesson, but it is the lesson I needed to learn, and this is how life decided to teach it to me. The envelope that I brought to court is in a safe deposit box now, Emily told me that, but it also lives somewhere in my mind, even when I cannot quite remember the details. It has become a symbol of something bigger than just evidence of Richard's theft. It has become proof that I was capable, that I mattered, that I fought back. It has become the thing I hold on to when everything else is slipping away. My envelope, my evidence, my refusal to be erased. And maybe that is what we all need. Not a literal envelope, but something that proves to ourselves and to the world that we matter. Something that says we were here, we made an impact, we refused to go quietly into the darkness. For me, it was that envelope full of documents and a moment of triumph in a courtroom. For you, it might be something completely different, a creative work that you made, a relationship that you nurtured, a child that you raised, a cause that you fought for, a moment when you stood up for yourself or for someone else who needed defending. Whatever it is, hold on to it, remember it. Let it be proof that your life has meaning and value and purpose. I am still here, diminished but not gone, confused but not completely lost, forgetting but still capable of moments of absolute clarity. I am still here, and I still matter, and so do you. So do all of us who are fighting battles that most people cannot see, struggling with losses that are invisible to the outside world, insisting on our humanity even when the world wants to reduce us to our limitations. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for bearing witness to my fight and my losses and my small victories. You have given me something precious by staying until the end, by caring enough to hear what happened to me. You have reminded me that my story matters, that my experience has value, that I am still a person worth listening to. That means more than you could possibly know. Please carry this story with you. Please think about it when you encounter elderly people or people with cognitive decline or anyone who seems diminished in society's eyes. Please remember that behind every diagnosis is a complete human being with a history and a story and a right to dignity. Please be the kind of person who sees them, who hears them, who treats them with the respect they deserve. That is how we change things, one person at a time, one interaction at a time, one moment of genuine human connection at a time. I do not know what happens next for me. I do not know how much longer I will have moments like this where I can think clearly and express myself and remember why any of this matters. But I know that right now, in this moment, I am here. I am present. I am telling you my truth. And that is enough. That has to be enough. Because it is all any of us really have in the end. This moment, this breath, this chance to connect with another human being and say, I was here. I mattered. I fought. I loved. I lived. And no disease, no betrayal, no loss can ever take that away from me. My story is my own, and I am telling it while I still can.